Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to another entry here. I'm going to be hitting up both an 80s throwback as well as a remake with this one, which is for The Blob from 1988. Yes, this is for the remake starring Shawnee Smith, Kevin Dillon, and yeah, this one, so it's a remake from The Blob from 1958, which I have not seen yet, at least not in my adult years. I know I saw some of it when I was much younger, probably, like I've mentioned before, in either like Elvira or Dr. Paul Bear or some sort of local hosted show, but I actually haven't seen the original in long enough that I have zero memory of it. But that's one that I definitely plan on going back and watching to maybe do an original review to go along with this remake review. But anyways, let's get back to The Blob from 1988, the synopsis for which is as follows. A deadly entity from space crash lands near a small town and begins consuming everyone in its path. Panic ensues as shady government scientists try to contain the horrific creature. So, we've got some space entities, a shady 80s scientists, some really good times here about the 80s. So we get this similar feel of in this one as many other 80s films, like maybe like Gremlins and Critters, for example, where we got that real small town feel where they want to introduce everybody there, where everybody knows who everybody is. Along with those small town tropes, we also get the common one of not believing the kids when they try to alert the authorities of something going on. No matter how level-headed, they seem after they've experienced this craziness, everything that they witnessed, when they try to bring the situation to the authorities or their parents, just nobody's believing them. So throughout our introduction, which is, that first 15 to 25 minutes of the film, we're brought up to speed on the town, these residents, and, a few of our main characters, we get to kind of see as this situation slowly unfolds. So, we get this homeless man who's kind of discovered this crash and, poking around at it, getting something on him. And some of our main characters come across this character, need to take him to the hospital, and, well, it doesn't really go very well. This creature kind of comes to light, it's slithering around, getting onto other people and dissolving their flesh and growing bigger. So, like I said, slowly, it's working its way through the town, and nobody will believe these kids to what they saw when they found this man or what happened at this hospital. And this slow creeping build is what we really get in this one. This mystery about what this thing even is and, eventually even how to handle it. Does it have any kind of weaknesses or anything? Can it be stopped in any way? It all plays out really well despite any spots of that creepy, slow build that was talking about. This film never really drags. Those points feel more, those slow creeping build and mystery unfolding points feel more like little breaks between the action and effects and gore and everything that's happening. And as for those effects, they really pulled this one off well, and I feel like it represents one of the big reasons I have of actually supporting a remake, which are the effects. Has something changed big within the industry where there are different effects available to be able to tell that story, that maybe you could bring this film back to the screen under a new interpretation now that you have the ability to do more with the special effects for this. Though, by today's standards, some of the effects in this might seem a bit dated, especially against any of the green screen stuff and like forced perspective stuff going on. We also have some stop motion animation being used. It's still quite a treat, and not just compared to the original, or at least the footage that I've seen of the original from 1958, but this one actually stands really well on its own. And we get these beats of these horrific deaths. It isn't as much one of those blood and guts kind of films, I would say, as much as a kind of horror that's, it's just the sheer violence, being pulled into drains or into, corridors or any other small spaces by this blob that's just pulling you in, just that bone crunching and twisting and then dissolving you. And with that dissolve, of course, we're getting that acidic aftermath of what happens with some of these people if they get out of the blob or what's happened and it spits out parts of them. I mean, we really get this gross skin dripping off of the person kind of effect as they are just falling apart from this thing. So that's where the actual gore kind of comes into it, but it still seems to play second fiddle to the suffocation and pulling and ripping of people and forcing them into things that they shouldn't be able to fit into. So, as I mentioned earlier, there are some slow spots in it, but to me, they felt like a bit of a break for what was going on. So rather than building a story where we get nonstop excitement, nonstop gore, nonstop violence, which can potentially desensitize me as I watch it. You know, it causing those scenes to eventually get a bit boring because I've seen so much of it. Think some of the complaints people have had about films like Transformers just being this nonstop action, and after a while they get bored with it because that action scene's been going on too long. Or some of the gore, where you look at some of the Saw films where the gore was scary, it was shocking, but now they're doing it over and over until that shock level is kind of decreasing a bit. You know, this one I felt like we're having this slow build, you know, rather than having like a slow build where it just keeps going and going and going slowly the entire way, where you don't get any payoff till 45 minutes or an hour into the film. This one was a bit more balanced. We have this build, unfold, shock. You know, then we unfold a little bit more, build a little bit more, shock, and so on, kind of leading us through. So the shock works as beats for the slow spots, and the slow spots work as a little break from some of those more intense scenes that you might come across. And I feel like this one really represents 80s horror very well. You know, we get a good mix of like focusing on the gore and the effects and the different violent aspects, as well as a story that's kind of unfolding. So if you like films like Reanimator or Night of the Comet, maybe The Fog, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, Night of the Creeps, Return of the Living Dead, and so on, I really think you'll enjoy checking this one out. And speaking of checking this one out, thanks for checking out my latest entry here for The Blob from 1988. Currently, it's available on paid rental, but keep an eye out because sometimes this one pops in and out of other streaming providers, so maybe check out that Just Watch app and see if maybe it's going to be coming to one of your services around the corner here if you're not really in the mood to pay just yet for it. Anyways, thanks for coming by and for sticking around to the end, because all that stuff, as well as, you know, subscribing, liking, commenting, and so forth, really do help out the channel quite a bit. And speaking of commenting, what are your thoughts on this? Sound off in the comments. Have you seen this film? And especially, have you also seen the original? How would you compare them? But anyways, that's all I got for this one. Thanks for coming by, and I will see you in the next one.